Yeah, so why don't we talk a little bit about the specific services that you offer to people? Who's eligible for those services? And then if we can kind of walk through what the process looks like to get engaged.
Of course, we are one of the few SB 40 board entities who we can start supporting right away. We do not need to have eligibility when we first start supporting individuals, and that is very unique to Option. Based on our assessment and intake, based on our professional assessment and intake, we can start supporting individuals immediately because we come upon individuals in crisis. Often we will start supporting individuals after an arrest or when some criminal legal involvement is imminent. And so we see people in crisis. And so that's been identified by community, by the SB 40 boards, that the individuals we support don't need to wait around for us to gather that eligibility. They need supports right away.
And I'm
So
sorry, I'm going to interrupt. Are you funded
please.
through all four of our regional boards?
Yes, we are funded, except for currently, we do not provide services in Jefferson County. We currently provide services in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, and Lincoln County. We don't currently provide services in Jefferson County, but we start providing services immediately if we believe that person has an intellectual disability or developmental delay. We do start as soon as we can, we start getting that eligibility documentation because we have 90 days to do it. And that 90 days can be difficult. So we start providing services immediately based on our assessment and intake. And those services can be very tailored to that individual, depending on where they are in the criminal legal process. That may be in jail in one of the justice facilities, either in the city Justice Center, County Justice Center, St. Charles DOC, or in Troy Jail. It may be their arrest may be they may be in danger of arrest, or they may be on probation or parole.
So if somebody is not in, if they've been arrested but they haven't been charged, at that point, are they eligible for services for
Yes,
advocacy?
yes. At risk is considered eligible.
Okay, fantastic. And what would you do in that situation? If somebody had
We
not been charged, are you like a liaison with the court system, with the lawyers? What do you provide to people?
What we do is we meet with the individual and the individual's natural support, so their family member or whomever is in their life that supports them. And we develop what's called an IJP, an individualized justice plan. We come up with a plan for support. So that plan for support, we're going to identify the need. What caused possibly that criminal legal involvement in the first? Why are they at risk in the scenario you came up with of criminal legal involvement? So maybe I'm going to give you a scenario of someone that we support, obviously with no name. This individual is up at night. He doesn't like to go to sleep at night. He has a lot on his mind, and he's up at night and he plays video games. And when the video games become boring, he leaves the house and does some wandering. And during the wandering, maybe he'll see a building that looks a little interesting, and he'll go into the building. And people who own the buildings don't like that at all. And so the police have been called a few times on that. And so nobody really wants to charge this individual. Most people just want this individual to be safe. And so we'll come up with a plan of support for safety for that.
We talked a little bit about kind of safety planning when you're in danger of being charged. At what point do you come in when someone's been arrested and maybe they're in a holding cell or they're gone to a county jail?
We have in St. Charles in particular, part of their intake process identifies an individual who may have a developmental delay or intellectual disability. One of their intake screening questions, and they developed their intake screening questions with us. So if they answer an intake screening question, they've had an IEP in school, or did they have a developmental delay or intellectual disability? And then they ask some specific questions about that, automatically generates an intake to option. The St. Louis County, we have an excellent relationship with St. Louis County Justice Center. They will, their case managers and nurse will automatically generate a intake to options. When we receive that intake, we will then schedule to go out and meet with that individual while they are still detained at one of the justice centers. City, we just joined a, I don't know what to call us, but we've just joined a conglomerate of support agencies. We're trying to create a bridge network of support for individuals at City Justice Center as well, so that individuals who move through that system also can gain supports before they ever leave the Justice Center in the city as well. So all of the justice centers, we work quite closely with them to make sure we're providing supports for individuals while they're still in detainment and then when they leave detainment, so that as soon as they're picked up, they're receiving the supports that they need.
And so what does that look like? If I've been arrested and I'm going to have to go to court, what would some of the things that your organization might help me with be?
If the person has just been arrested and we have met with them, we have come up with a justice plan, and it depends where they are in the court process. Most people that we support require a public defender. Most of the individuals we support do not have the money to hire a private attorney. So one of the first things we do is we assist them with applying for a public defender. That's one of the very first things we do. And then we help with communication with that public defender. We are not attorneys. Nobody who works at Options is an attorney, and people who are in the criminal legal system need an attorney. So that's one of the first things we do, is we make sure that they have an attorney. And depending on what's going on at court, we will go to court with them and make sure that they understand what's going on at court. If someone's in detainment, they do not go to all of their court dates. So if they're not going to court, we don't go to court either. Our time is spread very thin. So we don't go to all court dates. But if somebody's going to court, we do our very best to go to court with them. Legalese is very complicated language, and nobody simplifies it for the defendant. They expect you to understand it, or you don't, and that's the way that is. So one of our jobs is to make sure that you understand the process. We also will read all documents to the person who is we're supporting. A lot of people will sign a lot of things without knowing what's going on, just to get it over with and to move on to the next step of the process, because every step of the process is so unpleasant. They just want to move on to the next. And so one of the things we do is we make sure that people understand documents before they sign them. And because if you're about to go on probation or parole, you want to make sure you understand what court objectives you're going to have to reach. For example, there are some judges who insist on a GED before someone can leave probation. And some people, a GED is not obtainable. And so we have to make sure everybody understands what they're asking of an individual, so somebody isn't stuck on probation for an extra 4 years while we negotiate to get a GED off of that court order objective.
Boy, I had no idea that that could be an expectation. That's amazing.
It is. It's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and thinking about it, I mean, as with everything, if there was easy to read information, easy to understand information, it would be better for all of us, because I almost never understand what they're saying to me in a legal or medical situation.
No one
So
can.
thank goodness that you are there. I'm going to keep going down the path. So if somebody's been convicted and has to serve a sentence, do you provide any supports during that time frame?
When all of the Missouri DOCs are currently outside of our jurisdiction, But once someone is released from incarceration, we have so many people that will contact options through their case manager at DOC to let us know what their release date is so that we can start preparing for release. Because release from DOC often means release into homelessness if they don't have a family to go to. And so we start preparing documents for them as soon as we have a release date. So when you are detained, all of your services are turned off. Your Medicaid is turned off, your SSI is turned off, all of those things are turned off. And so we can start preparing documents for them to sign and get reinstated as soon as they're released. We can also get people on wait lists for housing when we know their release date. So we can start preparing for their success in reentry as soon as we know their release date. If someone is placed on probation, like if they get an SIS, suspended imposition of sentence, or SES, suspended execution of sentence, that means they're getting probation. One of the great things we do is support people through probation. We can be an intermediary between them and their probation officer. Often probation officers do not understand the significance of a lack of executive function. They think they've given a very easy to understand order to someone, and it is not. What they think is very simple. They want them to take a bus to this address, do this thing, and come back with it. And it isn't for someone who has executive function difficulties, someone who has an IQ below 70. Those things become much more complicated when you are dealing with someone with developmental delay or an intellectual disability. So educating those PO officers is a very important thing we do. And then supporting someone through probation is important work that we do. And so supporting someone through probation may be someone who is on SSI and their ordered objective is they have to have full-time employment. That's not going to work, but we can educate the probation officer why full-time employment doesn't work on SSI. Can we do community service instead? Can we work around that ordered objective? I have found that most people want to work with people. They don't want to just blindly punish people for disabilities. They want to work with them. And so finding a way to get people through the system is something everyone wants to do. Once somebody's in the system, they want to support them through it. They don't want to say, oh, well, sorry about that. Sorry, you're going to lose your SSI because now you have to have full-time employment. They know they're getting SSI for a reason, and full-time employment isn't going to be possible. And so we're just setting someone up to fail by having that expectation. And so us working together to find a solution for that is something everyone is happy to do.